Thank you again for everybody showing up. My name is Shea Perry. I'm the mother of Hardel Sherrell, and I am the founder and president of Be Their Voices. We started this organization 3 years ago because of the murder of my son in the Beltrami County Jail back in 2018. We are still fighting for justice for him, and we will continue fighting for justice for him until there is some accountability. We will continue fighting. We passed and worked hard to pass this law in honor of my son's name, called the Hardel Sherell Act, in 2021. Why are we gathered here today? Because people in jails keep dying, and it's unacceptable. Since we passed the Hardel Sherell Act, there have been 35 jail deaths. I don't care what the circumstances were. No one should die in jail. So we have gathered today. The community is as outraged as I am. And they are saying it's time for our voices to be heard. You don't want to listen to me, who I've started Be Their Voices and have tried to go out and protest peacefully and say what needed to be done. So now I called on the community to come and say what they need to say, because as I said, they are as outraged as I am. Beside me is the new CEO of Be Their Voices, and I thank God for Pastor Ron and my pastor, Mike Smith of Redeeming Love Church in Maplewood. I thank God that He is giving me the strength to stand before you today to tell you that enough is enough. Our first speaker of today is Michelle Gross. She's the president of Communities United Against Police Brutality.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Gross, Michelle-Gross, and I'm the president of Communities United Against Police Brutality. I'm here to condemn the continued pattern of deaths in jail and the escalation of those deaths. You know, one of the things that brought us together is the fact that these jail deaths seem to be escalating. And so I took a look at the statistics. I broke them down by year. I looked at everything from 2018 on. And what I see is, in fact, they are escalating. So what we see here, these are the years of COVID, 2020 and 2021 and a little into 2022. Those weren't the years that jail deaths escalated, though you could have expected that. All of a sudden, the last 2 years, we have seen a huge spike in the number of people dying in the jails. And these are young people, people who walk in healthy and leave in a body bag. That is utterly unacceptable. What is happening is that jails are using private companies and making arrangements essentially so that, you know, there's people coming in maybe sometimes during the week. Oftentimes they're unlicensed professionals, non-professionals rather. They're unlicensed, they're not nurses, they're health techs with maybe 2 weeks of training. And they are making the healthcare decisions for people who may have serious illnesses that put their lives in danger. And what we've got is those people being the gatekeepers for access to health care. And the jails are doing it to save money. This is all about their finances and their desire not to pay for people's medical care. In one case that I happen to be working on, we have an individual who went into the jail, was arrested right before he was supposed to start chemotherapy for cancer. He walked in, he was in the jail for 4 months awaiting trial, and never got that chemotherapy. By the time he got out of that jail, his cancer had advanced significantly. This is utterly unacceptable. Keep in mind that most of the people in jails have been convicted of no crime whatsoever. But even if you are convicted of a crime, the penalty is never a de facto death penalty for lack of medical care. This is utterly unacceptable, and we're here because the DOC has oversight of these county jails, and what they're telling us is we'll take a look at it after the person dies, and that's unacceptable. You need to be regulating these jails now. You need to be making it clear that they must provide medical care for people who need it, not substandard medical care by untrained non-professionals, but real medical care that people need to remain healthy and to address their medical needs. This is what we're here to demand to do. And the DOC has shirked their responsibility under the Hardel Sherrell Act by simply saying, well, we'll check it out after they die. That's too late. That is too late. We demand that the DOC step up to the plate and do what they're supposed to do under the Hardel Sherrell Act by regulating these jails appropriately. And that's why we're out here. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. Up next, we're going to have my attorney, Mr. Lederman, come up and speak, and he also is one of the pro bono attorneys that work with Be Their Voices, and we're so grateful to have the partnership with him. So I'll give him the mic. Thank you so much, Mr. Lederman.
Good afternoon. My name is Zorislav Lederman. I'm here on behalf of Be Their Voices. ZORISLAVLEYDERMAN. I got involved in Hardel Sherrell's case back right after September 2nd, 2018, right after he died. We investigated the case very thoroughly, and we initially uncovered a pattern of jail deaths in Beltrami County. Hardel was not the first person to die in that jail, and he wasn't the last, unfortunately. As we continue to investigate what's happening in Minnesota, we uncovered not only a pattern of jail deaths in any certain county, not only in Beltrami County, but a pattern of suspicious jail deaths all across the state. We brought these issues to the attention of the governor, the Attorney General's office, and the Department of Corrections. After months and years of lobbying by Shea Perry, finally the legislature in 2021 passed the Hardel Sherell Act, and she has started her organization, Be Their Voices. However, we are private citizens. We're not the government. We cannot force the individual jail facilities to do anything. That is the responsibility of the Department of Corrections. And Michelle is right, is that the way that the current system is set up is that the Department of Corrections has the ability to investigate what happened to people who died after they died. Nothing is happening currently, and nothing has been happening to stop this pattern of jail deaths that we're seeing by the data. These are not numbers that we're creating. This is the numbers that were provided by the Department of Corrections showing what's happening since 2018. We're on track this year to be the deadliest year for jail deaths in Minnesota history. If this pattern continues, we expect to see 5 more people die in jail deaths this year before the new year. We have with us here Tracy Parkhurst. We have Rivera-coba. They both lost their young sons just months ago in Anoka County Jail. If this pattern continues, we're going to be standing here once again in 3 months with 5 more mothers who have lost their kids to jail deaths, and this is unacceptable. We've been asking, since we've been trying to lobby for the Hardel Sherrell Act, for more resources to allow the Department of Corrections to provide better oversight to the jails. There's not enough money for them to send inspectors to every jail on a regular basis to see what's happening behind closed doors. We've been demanding body-worn cameras to be in every jail, which still is not happening. We are getting audio, we're getting video recordings, we're getting surveillance video from the jails showing the events of the jail, but we have no audio. We see young people talking to themselves, but we can't hear what they're saying. Body-worn cameras could solve all of these issues, but still we don't have adequate body camera coverage for the majority of jails across the state. And finally, it's time for the government to step up and appoint a task force so that we can understand what's happening with this pattern right here before we lose 5 more people before the end of the year. This is a crisis. We can't wait. And like I said, if we continue to wait and do nothing and say, well, we're going to look into it after they die, we will have 5 more mothers standing here in just 3 short months, and we can't have that. So thank you for your support. We're asking for you to contact the DOC Commissioner, Paul Schnell. We're asking for you to reach out to the governor, reach out to your elected representatives, and ask them to appoint a task force right away to stop this pattern before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before I bring up my next speaker, I just want to say that if jails are not going to provide basic care for inmates, then maybe they ought not to be open. Our next guest up is Marvina Haynes. Marvina, come on up. She's with Minnesota Wrongfully Convicted Judicial Reform. Go ahead. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak on this issue. The opportunity to speak on this issue. We know that when folks are taken to jail, that they become the responsibility of the state of Minnesota. And as a community member, when you think about that, in our mind, it makes us feel like our family members, when they're in there, that they're going to receive the best care because these people have the biggest budgets. And the whole way that the prison system has been taught to the community to love and respect and honor folks. But what we see is they take our children and put them in these cells, and they pay no attention to them. They offer them no medical attention when they're crying out for help. I have cases where folks have lost their toes, where folks have been crying out because of stomach conditions and all of this, and they are told that they have no problem. And they leave these folks sitting for hours and days, and folks end up passing away. We don't want this to continue to happen. We want, if folks have to go to jail or prison, we want them to come out as healthy as they went in, and also have proper medical care if they are inside of these facilities. Thank you, guys. I'm Marvina Haynes with Minnesota Wrongfully Convicted Judicial Reform. Thanks.
Thank you, Marvina. Thank you so much. Up next, I'm going to call my stepbrother, but I don't call him step because it ain't nothing step about him, Tron Cruz. He's the co-founder of Black Lives Matter, who's been out here with me pounding pavement 5 days after Hardel was, after we found out what had happened to Hardel. He called me and said, sis, we got to get to the governor's mansion. Let's go. So I rolled up my sleeves and we went out. So if I could have you come on up, Tron, and say a few words, that would be great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, brother.
The Christian Rivera-coba family shouldn't have to be here, and the other 35 people who have died in jails in Minnesota should not have to wonder what happened to their loved one either. Torture is, what's happening to people inside our jails in Minnesota is torture.
Yes.
What happened to Christian Rivera was torture. What happened to Hardel Sherrell was torture. What happened to Stephanie Bunker was torture. The recognizing that, according to the United Nations, recognition of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is a foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. Recognizing that those rights derive from the inherent dignity of human persons, considering the obligation of states under the Charter, in particular Article 55, to promote universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms, having regard to Article 5 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Article 7 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, both of which provide that no one shall be subjected to torture, cruel and inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment.
Yes.
So what happened to Christian Rivera-coba was cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment. What happened to Hardel Sherrell was cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishment. Having regard also to the Declaration on the Protection of All Persons from being subjected to torture and other cruel and inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment adopted by the General Assembly on December 9th, 1975. So this law has been in effect since 1975. Yet people in American jails, particularly here in the state of Minnesota, continue to be tortured in American society, in a democratic society. We're not supposed to be a third world country, but people who are inmates in Minnesota jail are being treated or are in third world conditions. Ramsey County Jail is hotter inside the jail than it is outside in the summer, and it's colder inside the jail in the winter. That's inhumane, and that causes sickness. There's elderly people in our jails who are getting sick and dying, and this is incorrect. So we need Governor Walz, we need Paul Schnell, and the head of public safety, because when we don't have trust in our law enforcement system, it causes a breakdown of society. And right now we don't have trust in our police departments. We don't have trust in our jails, and we don't have trust in our prisons. And it's causing a breakdown of American society. So we need to address this immediately so that we can have a democracy that works for everyone.
Yeah.
Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Peace. God bless you.
Thank you, Trac. And just as he had said, you know, we fought hard to pass this bill. We got bipartisan support. And this can't just be a piece of paper with some document with fancy writing on it, and it means nothing. It has to stand for something. It can't just be a fancy document with words on it. It has to stand for something. So we are calling on Paul Schnell. I know that we have been working together to make some change, but we gave you authority to sanction jails. Please start sanctioning these jails, because until there is serious consequences as to what keeps happening in Minnesota jails, it'll keep happening. And enough is enough. The next speaker that I want to introduce to you all is Chantel Allen, and she is also the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Twin Cities. Thank you so much.
I'm trying to be cool. You got me all fired up.
Well, that's what I want to do. Fire it up. Fire it up.
My name is Chantel Allen, ChauntYll. I'm the Director of Criminal Justice Policy with Wayfinder Foundation, and I'm also the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Twin Cities, who is also part of the network of Black Lives Matter Grassroots, because Black Lives Matter Grassroots is Black Lives Matter. This is not a local conversation, unfortunately. This is a problem across our nation. There's jails across our nation that are just allowing bodies to just die. We ask ourselves, why? How can this be? How can we just look at humans and then just allow their illnesses to fester and then them to just die on our clock? I argue that it's the 13th Amendment. In the 13th Amendment, it states that if you are convicted of a penal crime, you will be put back into slavery. And so they don't see people who are in the prison systems as human. We've got to change that. As Trahern talked about, we need to restore our democracy. And if we really want to restore a real democracy in this country, we have to start caring about Black lives. We have to start caring about humanity. That is important, right? And frankly, as a citizen, a taxpayer of state of Minnesota, the city of St. Paul, I'm starting to feel like the elected officials hate us. It just feels like they just, not only do they not care, they literally hate us. Because how can you watch the numbers just go up? You saw the numbers go from here to here this year, and you still never did anything this year or this year to change. You didn't put any policies in play that says we need to double check when people have any kind of illnesses or diagnoses, or if they need chemotherapy. We know that cancer can be removed. We know that that does not have to be someone's demise. Why are we not using our dollars and making sure that the people that are behind the bars are getting the care that they need? I have a cousin who was in Ramsey County Jail last year, and he was there for 4 days before he received insulin.
Oh, good God.
Why? Why is that so hard? You got these people living in these conditions, and then you think that this is going to be okay for the average tax-paying citizen, and it's not. The state of Minnesota does not have a death penalty. Why? Because the constituents don't want it. So that means that our tax-paying people do not want this type of behavior behind bars. You've got to step up and do your job.
Yes.
Governor Walz, you have to step up and do your job. I keep coming to this microphone and talking to these cameras about all kinds of ways that you're putting a tax on black bodies. Paul Schnell, you were elected to do this particular job. You've got to do your job. People's blood are on your hands. I know that has to feel some kind of way, and if you're sleeping good at night, that's a problem. You need to give up your job to somebody who won't sleep good at night and who will think about how to shape policy so that this stuff doesn't keep happening, who has a futuristic vision of how we can really get to a place where when people make mistakes in society, they will actually rehabilitate themselves, if that's what you want to call it, but actually take accountability for their harms. We need to start looking at restorative methods, and that includes the small things that are happening inside of prisons too. We need the restorative measures on the outside, but we also need them on the inside. And I'm gonna tell you, waterboarding is not on the list of things to do. That's not on the list of things to do. I'm gonna say it again. Waterboarding is not on the list of things to do. When someone is laying there torturously in pain, just leaving them there is not on the list of things to do. That's not punishment. That doesn't equate to punishment. Death in this state does not fit. So Governor Walz, if that's your mindset and you think that this is okay and you're not actively doing something to put the pressure on Paul Schnell, who is not actively doing anything, this is obvious by the numbers, then you need to step down. Both of you need to step down because the citizens of Minnesota do not believe in the death penalty.
Thank you so much. Yes, yes. Next up, I would like to introduce Dr. Raj. Dr. Raj, come on up. Another powerful community activist and professor here at Metro State, and has been doing some phenomenal work in the community. So go ahead and take it from here. Thank you so much for coming.
So my name's Raj, and I'm standing here and wondering why the Department of Corrections representatives are not here. This is our war and our fight. This is a collective fight. This is a fight that the entire state of Minnesota should be in, along with the systems folks, right? This is not about us versus them. When it comes to people's lives, this is time for us to come together as a collective to fight for this process of justice that Chantel Allen so eloquently pointed out, that the state of Minnesota is not going to subject people to death sentence, and yet systematically we are subjecting people to death sentence. And yet we know there are resolutions and solutions that we can seek and fund, because the Department of Corrections just got awarded $1 billion, right? What the fuck are they doing? I'm sorry. What the fuck are they doing with this money? I am appalled at the conditions at which our jails are being managed. This calls for every county sheriff to come to terms with how they are not providing leadership when it comes to critical moments like this, right? Every county manager should be held accountable, right? This is not just about the jail COs, right? This is about the absence of leadership in our places, in our spaces. And Chantel Allen pointed out there are so many counties and cities that are seeking to do justice work by providing a radical act of justice in the form of participatory defense, in the form of restorative justice, in the form of transformative justice. These are not academic theories any longer. These are practiced in many of these counties. And yet, when it comes to the state of Minnesota, we refuse. We turn a blind eye. We say we will teach restorative justice in our college campuses, and yet when it comes to systems practicing this, there is a serious absence because we are still used to a punitive system, right? Carceral logic is still very much funded alongside this idea of systems systematic oppression that is taking place in our community. So it is time for us to seek this appropriate, optimal response versus what we have practiced in the past 400 years of oppressing communities. So I would say the demand for me and the community that is here is bring the community voice into the space of dealing with the harm, as opposed to just simply counting the bars. Love you.
Thank you so much,
Excuse me,
Dr.
sir.
Raj.
Yeah.
Could you spell your first and last
R.A.J.
name?
Oh, that's it. Next up, we will have Dr. Nikita Levy Armstrong, another powerful voice in our community, and she is also the founder and president of Racial Justice Network.
Woo!
Yeah.
That's how we receive it.
Yes. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Good afternoon. I'm here to stand in solidarity with Ms. Shea Perry and everyone else who is concerned about the jail deaths that have been occurring in the state of Minnesota. I reiterate what folks have said before about the urgent need for change. The fact that we have a DFL majority in the legislature means that none of this should be happening, at least according to what they tell our communities that they're concerned about. But at the end of the day, the buck rests with Paul Schnell, Commissioner of the Department of Corrections, as well as Governor Tim Walz. This is not the first time we have had to call out Commissioner Paul Schnell for the mistreatment of those who are incarcerated in our jails and prisons in the state of Minnesota. As the executive director of a nonprofit organization that is focused on criminal justice, my staff and I sent a letter over a year ago to Commissioner Paul Schnell to ask for civil rights tours of at least 2 prisons in Minnesota so that we could talk to the people who are incarcerated, so that we could actually evaluate the facilities and the conditions that people are being subjected to. And Paul Schnell has led us on for more than a year and has still not allowed us to conduct a civil rights visit of any prisons in the state of Minnesota. This is unconscionable. And the question that I ask is, what are they hiding? What are they hiding? How come those of us who care about freedom, justice, and equality cannot check on people behind the wall who do not have a voice typically and whose conditions are typically out of sight and out of mind for the rest of the public? So at this point, given what happened in Stillwater, given the fact that we have had 65 jail deaths since 2018, the fact that we've had 15 jail deaths alone in 2023, and the complaints by those who are incarcerated, I am, on behalf of the Racial Justice Network, calling for Commissioner Paul Schnell to be fired or to resign immediately. We should not have to tolerate what has been happening. We know that Paul Schnell has a background as a former St. Paul police officer, and the way that he has been conducting his business as the head of the DOC reeks of propaganda. And the fact that he continues to make excuses and ignore the public, which is similar to what we have experienced when we have tried to hold police officers accountable for their behavior. So there is no way that a former police officer with this type of track record should continue to have oversight of thousands of people who are locked away in our jails and our prisons. We are seeing the outcome, and that is death, destruction, fear, and trauma, and it is unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So you all heard it. They came out because I was out here with Trarin in the beginning in 2018, trying to get them to hear what had happened to my son, my only child, Hardel Sherrell. And as, yes, we have settled our civil lawsuit, it's not about money at all. It's about accountability, and we will continue to fight for it as long as it takes. Up next, I'd like to invite Rivera-Coba family to come on up, Abdul, if you want to speak. Again, this is another family member. She doesn't want to speak today, and I understand. Trust me. I stand with you, Mama. I stand with all these mothers. But as someone who is running a nonprofit organization that talks about being their voices. As you heard what Dr. Nikita Levy Armstrong said, the voice of those incarcerated are voiceless. Yes. We need to make sure that we are doing all that we can so that their voices are heard. Right. What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
All power to the people. Yes. You want to say now, honey? Okay. Come on.
Buenas tardes a todos. Mi lenguaje es en español. Tal vez los que estén aquí no me van a entender, pero atrás de esas cámaras que están acá para apoyarnos a todos, me van a entender. Soy la madre de Cristian Rivera, un joven de 22 años, quien tenía toda la vida por vivir. No sé qué pasó, no sé qué le pasó. Lo único que quiero ver acá es qué está pasando adentro de las cárceles, qué está pasando con los jóvenes. ¿Qué están esperando todos los que están arriba? Los que tienen más poder, que supuestamente tienen poder. ¿Qué es lo que esperan para hacer? Si son cárceles para corregir jóvenes, ¿en qué se están volviendo? ¿En qué se están volviendo, me pregunto yo? ¿En cárceles o en masacres? ¿En reformatorios o quitándoles la vida? ¿Qué es lo que pasa? Jóvenes, yo estoy aquí con la foto de mi hijo y con la otra foto del otro joven que murieron en el mismo mes. Su madre le decía rabbit, a mi hijo le decía conejo, en el mismo mes. Aproximadamente 2 años de diferencia. El segundo hijo de la señora, el segundo hijo mío. ¿Qué esperan que nosotros hagamos como madres? Que nos aparemos enfrente de ellos, vengamos a hacer mucho ruido para que nos entiendan o nos hagan o nos den respuestas. Estos son. Nosotros como madre pedimos justicia por nuestros hijos. Queremos justicia. Queremos respuestas. No más jóvenes. Ni uno más. Ni uno más. Nosotros como madres tenemos que pararnos y seguir luchando. Una madre no deja a los hijos solos en ningún momento. Y en este momento yo no voy a dejar a mi hijo solo. Voy a seguir por él y voy a seguir de pie. Aunque mi corazón está roto, Dios me da la fuerza para seguir luchando por mi hijo. Y queremos respuestas, no más jóvenes sufriendo, no más jóvenes muertos. Eso es todo lo que pido. Sigamos luchando y gracias a todos por darnos esta oportunidad de que nos sigan escuchando, a nosotros como madres sufriendo.
Well, I don't know what she said, but those that speak Spanish understand it, and we know what we're talking about today. It's unfortunate, again, that we have yet another mother out here talking about what happened to her son and wanting answers as to why they died in a jail cell. And it's just not acceptable at all. And it could be your son or daughter. It could be Governor Walz's son, God forbid, or the commissioner. Nobody is excluded from this. But we need to do something, and we need to do it now. We need real jail reform, and we need it now. I would like to invite Chantel to come up one last time, to come on and
What's your name? Kevin. All right, come on, Kevin.
Who? Oh, I didn't. Is Tracy? Is Tracy here?
She had a.
That's what she. No, she's not. Yeah. That's what I thought. I was looking for her before. Yeah.
So if the crowd could repeat after him, we're gonna do the Asada chant. That's what this is called, the Asada chant. All right. All right. You ready? So you're gonna turn towards the crowd though.
Yeah.
They don't. The media doesn't really. Well, now we can get the shot. We have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to fight for.
We have a duty to fight for our freedom. So tell.
We have a duty to fight our freedom.
We have a duty to fight for our
We
freedom.
have a duty to win.
We have duty to win.
We have a duty to win.
We must love and protect one another.
We must.
Say it. We must love and protect one another. We must love and protect one another.
We must love and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to win.
We have a duty to win.
We must love and support one another.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
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 All power to the people, y'all.
All power to the people.
Feel that? Did
Thank
feel
you
that?
so much,
That's the power
everyone,
you
for
gotta
coming
bring
out.
with us,
We appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great day. God bless. Well, I don't know. Were there any questions? I'm sorry. Did you guys have any questions? Go ahead, Nico.
So, Men's Correctional Care, who was in charge of your son, Dr. Todd Leonard, he's now not a doctor, lost his license.
Yes.
Men's Correctional Care is not in
Yes.
the prisons or jails
Yeah,
right
they're
now, from my
bankrupt. They
understanding,
went
but
bankrupt.
They went bankrupt, exactly. Yes.
And so Advanced Correctional Care, I think, is what it was in Anoka County, where Miles and Christian have passed.
Yes.
Is there any kind of, maybe Zoroslav knows, maybe you know, maybe other people know, is there any kind of rubric that shows how these correctional care companies are serving the children or the people inside, the adults inside? Is there any kind of basically a policy when it comes to choosing the next one to be the next correctional care? Basically, we see Christian and Miles die within 3-4 days or within a week, and it's obvious that they're not getting the correct correctional care,
Yes.
the correct medical care. So, is there? Yeah, can you answer that?
Yes, Michelle Gross again with Communities United Against Police Brutality. I'm also a retired nurse and work as a medical paralegal. What we see is non-licensed, non-professionals providing this care. Typically they use people that are called health techs, and these people normally have as little as 2 weeks of training on how to take vital signs, and they are the gatekeepers for much of the medical care that happens in the jails. In addition, most of the jails do not have any medical care on the weekends, and if you look at jail rosters, most of the arrests happen right before the weekend. And so you know, it's ridiculous not to have somebody in those jails who can evaluate people's medical needs, find out what medication they're on, make sure that they get that medication, especially for critical medications like antihypertensives or, you know, diabetic medications, heart medications, things like that. It's completely ridiculous that there is no medical care in most of the jails on the weekends whatsoever. The jails hesitate to send people to the emergency room because it's expensive. It's the most expensive care you can get, essentially. It's poor quality care. You know, I mean, not to disparage our emergency rooms, but it's not the kind of care that people should get on an ongoing basis. But they don't even want to send people to the emergency room even when people have the kinds of symptoms that would warrant it. And so what we're seeing, like I said, is, you know, in case after case that I review, I see some person who's an unlicensed non-professional looking at that person and saying, oh, your vital signs are fine, you don't need anything. Meantime, that person's dying. And I've seen it over and over again in all of the records that I've reviewed. And that's the biggest issue, is that they don't want to put real professionals, licensed practitioners into the jails, and they don't provide care on the weekends. And that's the things that I see that contribute to these jail deaths. I want to say one more thing. There is such an incredible lack of mental health care in the jails that it is appalling. You know, as much as 50% of the people that come to the jails have a diagnosis, a mental health diagnosis of some type. Those people are typically not given the medications that they would be on outside of the jail, and these people degrade mentally while they're in the jail. It's quite appalling. There was a practice with some of the jail practitioners or some of the jail medical companies where they would literally strip people of their medications and give them a journal to write in for 2 weeks so they could write down how they feel. And then and only then they would give them the cheap stuff, if you will, not the medications those people were actually taking. And of course, you know, all kinds of bad things follow from that, because with mental health problems, you also have physical health problems, but you also have people who are suicidal, who, you know, engage in self-injurious behavior, things like that, because their mental health needs are not being addressed. And so all of those things are a huge problem. If you're going to put people behind bars and block their access to their own healthcare providers, you would damn well better be providing them with quality healthcare by appropriate licensed professionals, 24/7, 365.
That's right.
And that's the issue right there.
Yep, exactly. Thank you, Michelle. Were there any other questions? No? All right, well, thank you again for coming out. We appreciate the support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I went back and forth, so it was good. Thanks for noticing.
My arm was out too. Yeah, oh, yeah. But you know, I figured it was a workout for you. Time out. Is there? It's not Bible study. It's just prayer. Prayer. There was men's and women's Bible study. What time is it? 6:30. And men's one is, and you can come. It's well, I mean, I get it. No, I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna move just back a little bit.
Thank you for putting that together.
Gonna chat with Marvina Haynes real quick.
Well, I got that cut before I went.
Okay.
Let me make sure we're still live and everything. All right. So we're here live. Thank you all for joining us. Nikita from Unicorn Riot. That was a press conference with family members who've lost their loved ones, some who've lost their loved ones to jails and custody deaths. And right here is Marvina Haynes, who's the sister of a man who was incarcerated for almost 20 years now, and seems like your brother is innocent. Also, he's in Stillwater. We did a long sort of investigative piece on her brother's story. We couldn't find any evidence that links him to the crime, and it seems like all the evidence links him to not being the perpetrator of the crime that he's in Stillwater for. But also, Stillwater just had a civil disobedience that happened over some sort of treatment. And do you want to talk about that? Like maybe bring us back to what happened earlier this last month in September, like was 2nd of September, 2nd or 3rd of? 3rd. Yep, 3rd of September. Bring us back there. Sort of what's happened since then. How that can sort of tie into what we're doing here, and maybe some of the retaliation that some of the inmates have faced.
Okay.
All right, sweet. And then you can go.
Hi everyone, my name is Marvina Haynes. As Nico said, I'm the sister of Marvin Haynes, who has been wrongfully incarcerated for the last 19 years. Minneapolis stole him from my family in 2004. And just to give you a little description of what Nico was explaining, September 3rd, there was an uprising in Stillwater Prison because the prisoners there had called out and said that because of the heat wave, they weren't able to go back into their cells and drink the brown water that was coming out of their sinks. And so when I got the call, I organized a group of folks and we went out to Stillwater Prison to stand in solidarity with the protest prisoners and the whole situation that was going on. When we got there, we noticed a large presence of AMLAMs, police officers, security guards, and then they had these special units that looked like the Navy that were trying to get in and out. They had like dogs walking around. They also had like medical professionals who were doing CPR to black dowels. And the black dowels is something very uncommon because even when I went to CNA school black dowels was just something that was harder to get your hands on. So to see a whole line of black dowels where they're training to give them medical attention and to revive them if something was to happen. And so me and my team and a couple other leaders, we organized around that, and we went out and we stood in solidarity until they were able to get the inmates back into their cell. And then a lot of the guys, 130 inmates there, got put on lockdown because of the situation that happened. 3 of them had went to, I'm sorry, in the beginning it was more than 3. It was probably like 7 of them had all went to a different unit, which is called segregation. So originally they locked down the whole B East mod, and they put up white curtains so no one can see in and no one can see out. But they took Pacific people to another unit that's called the Hole. When those folks got there, they wasn't given access to showers. No one in B East was given access to showers. So all of the things that they were protesting for, they continued to do it. Paul Snells did bring in water bottles eventually to the inmates, and they did have the water tested. What we found out from the water testing is that they didn't do it properly. Part of their release that they put out, they said that they followed the Safe Drinking Act, and so it took us a while to understand, because we're not like scientists or anything. We're just activists who's concerned about the way that they were treating my organization. That's what we do. We're concerned about the way folks are getting treated throughout the prison system and folks who's wrongfully incarcerated. But so we found out that they didn't follow the guidelines of the Safe Drinking Water Act. And so that means that they never collected a clean sample of water to be tested in the beginning. In order to collect a clean sample, you have to take the first sample of the day. After the water is being ran, they let the water run for over 5 minutes throughout the prison and then collected the sample. If you look at how you release contaminations, that's the same way you release contaminations from the well. So they knew that if they did that it wouldn't come back as bad. There was still things that was really high that worried us, like high amounts of lead throughout the prison. Magnesium is something that affects the brain development. Lead also affects the brain development. But we also got reports of people who had like stomach diseases. Hyperloria is what it's called. Even folks who family members have died in prison due to cancer. And so now, when Paul Snell tested Stillwater, he also tested Lino Lakes, which Lino Lakes prison was found with a high amount of lead inside of Lino Lakes. And they're like, well, Stillwater prison is okay to drink, but the water's brown and it's rusty. It tastes like salt, and sometimes it smells like eggs. And I'm like, would you give your kids that water to drink, Paul Snell? We have requested to meet with him, and he has denied the community any access to him. We have put out calls of actions for people to continue to call him. The 3 people that's currently in solitary confinement is Kowalski, Philip Vance, and Lincoln Cobwell.
All directly from the civil disobedience?
Yes. And so some of them even got into March. So like Philip Vance, he got like 180 days, but they were trying to give them like extended time to their sentence, years, 745 days, some of them, and then also put them inside of solitary confinement for like a larger amount of time than just the 6 months that they were given.
And they got the prison infractions?
Yes.
Did they get riot charges? Is that what
They were charging them with the riot. I'm sorry, they did get riot charges. And in the prison, in order so if 3 inmates go and ask the staff a question, they can be charged with starting a riot. So their definition of a riot and what we have seen in the dictionary is totally different. And so we're very concerned about the retaliation that has been happening to those specific inmates. We want this to stop. We want to have access to the prisons. We want to see what's going on. If our loved ones is going to be there, they need to come out of the prison as healthy as they went in. This is the same thing. So when they created the prison system, it was just reformed slavery is what they did. And so slavery never went away, because if you look at the numbers of slaves that they have and look at the numbers of inmates that's in the prison, it's almost the same. It is right around the same amount of people who have been captured. And so we cannot continue to have the prisons ran as a slave institution. When people go to prison, even if they committed a crime, prison was supposed to be to reform those folks and get them back out to the community so they can serve the community that they live in and also take care of their family. Why aren't folks having access to get out of prison when they go there? Paul Snell is also in charge of releasing people from prison. Right now, there's something that passes called the MRRA, where he can release over like 1,400 people as of today who has served their time, who have did everything that they needed to do to be able to come out and spend time with their family and give back to the community and serve us as a community. But he is denying that because those inmates make 17 cents an hour while they make the big bag off of their labor. So the problem in the prison is, just like Trey Horn was saying, like a third world country. They're running the prison like a third world country, where we're in the United States of America.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
Sorry,
it.
I'm all over the place today.
Hey, no, you're good.
I have like 5 interviews right after this.
Oh,
you know I'm running for city council? That's crazy. You seem kind of put me on this.
No, let's talk. We're gonna talk to the lawyer right now. So if you could, you could be right about here. If you could give us an update on, Hardel's case is a little old now, 5 years, but no charges still. Although Dr. Todd Leonard has lost his license. Can you give us an update where we're at with Hardel's case?
So the case went to the Beltrami County Attorney's Office. The Beltrami County Attorney's Office asked the Attorney General's office to assist with reviewing the case, and that's what the case is now. So Keith Ellison's office is reviewing the case for criminal charges. We are receiving some updates, but in the end, I don't have anything substantive to be able to share. All we know is that they're reviewing the case, and that's all the information we have at this point.
And then, so with Hardel Sherrell, he passed, and just give a little quick background. Yes. He passed 5 years ago.
September 2nd, 2018, after days of medical neglect. And we've seen the numbers from since Hardel died. Things seem to be stable for a few years, and now we have skyrocketing jail deaths. And no one is doing anything proactive to stop it. Looking into people who have died is one thing. Trying to stop jail deaths is another. And so we're trying to push for stopping further jail deaths instead of just looking back at the old ones to see what happened.
Can you talk about what happened with Dr. Todd Leonard? If you know about some of the situation that happened with him?
Well, what happened to Dr. Leonard was public information. So he had the proceedings before the Board of Medical Practice, and he was disciplined by the board. I don't know what's happening with him now, if that's what you're asking. I don't have any information about what he's doing currently.
So we have no new information on Dr. Todd Leonard, and there's still an investigation supposedly by the FBI on Hardel's death in custody?
The FBI is still working on the case as well, but again, the updates from them are minimal. We don't know where they are in the process or when it's going to be completed.
Anything else you feel like you could add, even in regards to Christian or Miles' death or other deaths?
We're reviewing both of those cases. We're still working on gathering data, gathering medical records, gathering records pertaining to the autopsies that were done. It's a little early to provide detail. As soon as we're able to complete our investigation, we'll be able to share more.
So you're working with both the families?
Yes.
When I talked to Sherburne County last week, they said that they hadn't finished the autopsy reports, or that the medical examiner just hadn't finished them. Do you know if there's an update on that?
I'm not sure if they're finished. I think they're getting close. But you never know. Sometimes it takes months and then you're waiting. The toxicology can take a long time to come back. I don't know where they are in the process currently, and I don't know when it's going to be completed, but we're hoping sometime soon for both Miles Jackson and Christian.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anything else you feel like is pertinent to add?
No, not right now.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
I'm gonna see if Delshia is still here. I don't see Delshia, but all right, we're gonna close this down. Again, my name is Nico Georgiadis from Unicorn Riot. Thank you, Chris, for running the back end. This is the Department of Corrections office for the Department of Corrections. Ms. Delia Perry, who we were just talking to, her lawyer, lost her son, Hardel Sherrell, in 2018 in Beltrami County Jail due to medical neglect. Two other people whose families were here, Christian Rivera-Coba and Miles Jackson, lost their lives in Anoka County Jail in July. Mr. Zoroslav Liederman was just talking about the autopsy reports for Miles Jackson and Christian Rivera-Coba, who have not been completed, and also talking about Dr. Todd Leonard, who was the correctional care creator of Mend Correctional Care, who was running the correctional care for a lot of jails in Minnesota that oversaw the death of Hardel Sherrell, as well as a lot of other deaths. As you heard, the new correctional care in Anoka County is Advanced Correctional Healthcare, I believe, and they have still yet to complete a autopsy. Excuse me, it's not them, it's the Ramsey County or medical examiners, not from Ramsey County, but medical examiners. Check out our what coverage at unicornriot.ninja. We have a new article up with this presser. The links back to the Christian Rivera-Coba story that you can get all the information from. And if you missed the part of the beginning of the stream, we should have it on different platforms. We might pop the opening up on another platform as well, like Twitter. So check out our Twitter. Follow us across the social media atmosphere, and continue to spread our work if you appreciate us, and support us if you appreciate our work. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot, Chris on the back end. This is the Department of Corrections. What you've been hearing is deaths in jails are on the rise in Minnesota, and families are seeking answers. Families are seeking investigations, and families are seeking this to stop. So thank you all for joining. Take care.